This episode of the podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/lightscameranonsense. Visit patreon.com/lightscameranonsense to help support your favorite new movie podcast. Now, let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome back to Lights, Camera, Nonsense, where we give you all the latest movie magic you may have missed. I'm Nick. Ladies. Simmons.
And I'm Zach. Please vote Smith.
And on September 26th, 2020, let's roll into the previews. Zach, what have you been watching?
So first up on my watch list, I finally went back and finished out the first season of the Disney XD reboot of DuckTales.
Woohoo!
David Tennant as Scrooge, and yeah. And that was nice. I'm about halfway through season 2 now. But yeah, the show continues to be fun, wholesome, and humorous as well. So still enjoying that.
Nice.
And then the other thing I watched, that's on Disney Plus, by the way.
Right.
That's available if you want to go watch that.
Woohoo!
Yeah. And then the other thing I watched, on HBO Max, I watched a little documentary by the name of Class Action Park.
Okay. What's it about?
And this documentary details the sort of rise and fall of the eponymous Action Park, which is basically a death trap amusement park in the middle of New Jersey that has since closed. It closed in like 96 or 97. Opened in the late 70s. And the documentary kind of just goes into how the water slash adventure parkish sort of thing came around, like how it was first built, and the guy who was behind it, Gene Mulvihill, Gene Mulvihill,
Nailed it.
who is like a mad scientist version of Walt Disney, I guess.
Okay.
And by the way, if you're hearing some little crying noises, it's my dog here having a conniption because he's not getting enough attention at the moment, at this very specific moment.
It's very important. It's very important.
Sorry about that.
It's all good.
But it is. But anyway, yeah, so Class Action Park is the documentary based on the Action Park. And it just kind of details like some of the crazy shit that went on at this place, to like having water slides that were literally like you had to lower yourself vertically, like almost like you were doing a hanging from a pull-up bar.
Yeah.
You had to lower yourself into a water slide and then just free fall drop and hope your back makes contact with the slide on the way down. There's another one where it's like I think it's on the little cover art, I guess, of it when you're looking at it on HBO Max. It's like this huge fucking steep ass water slide that goes into a loop and then shoots you out. And it talks about how like when people went down that, they'd like peel skin off, or like, people lost teeth in there. So like the people who went after those people who lost their teeth were getting cut up by the teeth. And
I don't want you to spoil the whole movie for me because it sounds like an interesting documentary. But does it say how many people have died from going to this park?
It does talk about how many people have died,
which is more than one.
That's a little bit later. So the way, yeah, more than one, if you can believe it. The way it's structured, kind of like it starts off detailing like the building of it when it first starts to kind of come into fruition, and as it goes on, and it's detailing like all these crazy fucking like not very well tested rides that they're coming up with. It starts to be like, oh, and this is how people got hurt on it. And then as it keeps going and going, it kind of delves more into Mulvihill himself, and like kind of where his headspace was at, in that he's fucking batshit. And then it also, like, one of the people they're interviewing is a parent of one of the kids, the first kid that died at the park, which you don't know until, like, kind of near the end of the documentary. So that's kind of like that's when there's a bit of a tone shift in the last 20 to 30 minutes or so, for obvious reasons.
Right.
Because that's when they start talking about, yeah, people fucking died. Their wave pool was, they referred by the employees as the grave pool, which, if that's what your wave pool is called, like, that's not what it was actually called. It was just called the wave pool, but there were so many people who, like, literally fucking drowned in that thing. It was called the grave pool. And there was a death zone of the wave pool where if you're there, you're probably going to need a lifeguard to resuscitate you. And the other thing about Action Park is the employees were pretty much all like 14-year-old kids. So, like, most of the time they weren't trained. They weren't trained. Their form of, like, introduction would be to, like, oh, okay, you're new here. 30 minutes. Your first shift is at the grave pool. And, like, within 30 minutes, they say, of being on that station, your new employee, who's probably never done any sort of lifeguard training at all, has resuscitated or had to rescue, like, 5 people in 30 minutes. So that's what's going on there. It talks about how, like, they cut costs with, like, food and shit, like stale food that they'd wrap up in. Like, they'd wrap hot dog buns up in, like, fucking wet towels so it would make it seem like they're moist. And, like, I don't know how anyone didn't walk away from food poisoning there. But
all you would probably have to do is look at the sign of this place, and you're like, yep, nope, this is not, Waterworld, or what is it called? The German one that's, like, near us. Schlitterbahn. Yeah. You'd be like, this is no Schlitterbahn. Which sounds dirty every time I say that.
It does. It's just kind of crazy. So it was basically run by 14-year-old kids. Well, it was owned by a fucking madman who, at one point, they detail his idea to make sure people who are going out. So the area where this park was located is in Vernon, which is kind of like, it's almost like a good ski spot they talk about.
Yeah.
In Jersey. So they have a ski lift to go up to the top of one of their more dangerous attractions, which was the Alpine slide, I think. Which is basically just a huge, long fucking slide of concrete. Like, when you see people, like, fucking luging and shit down, like, the huge fucking tube tunnels or whatever.
Yeah. That's
essentially what it is. And you're on a little fucking, like, trolley cart with, like a miniature minecart almost, where you have to pull back on the brake and hope that the brake fucking works, because the cart's not busted. And you're going, like, 40 miles an hour down a fucking hill made of concrete. And anyway, so his idea to make sure the people who are going up to the top of this via the ski lift have tickets was to stand on the side, hire, like, a homeless person to come and try to get on the lift without a ticket, and then when he didn't have one, cattle prod him. And then the guy is supposed to act like he died. So, like, that's the fucking kind of mental shit you're dealing with. That guy's in charge. Or he owns the park anyway.
What?
And then the people in charge, or who are supposed to be making sure it's safe or helping people, are some 14-year-old kids who have never had a job and probably don't know how to do any sort of medical attention whatsoever, who are either not at their posts, getting high or making out in the employee shack at the top of the hill.
Like most amusement parks, but like you think of those as like 18-year-olds who have just like they're in their senior year, they don't care. This is like 14-year-old kids. And so it takes a whole other level of like, come on kind of aspect to this. Sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, it's just kind of like it is a fever dream amusement park if there ever was one. And it's just kind of crazy that it didn't, like, people got hurt obviously from its inception, but I'm honestly surprised it took as long as it did for people to die. But that's what they had, and they kind of equate it to, you know, like the upbringing style of the 80s where like parents just didn't fucking know where their kids were half the time. And I mean, that's like, I think it's John Mulaney has a bit about milk carton kids, which is the thing I was thinking about the entire time. They were talking about like, you can just go anywhere and like come back home and your parents wouldn't know any better. And
I mean, the world was a less scary place, as weird as it is to say that, you know.
Or it was just as scary and you weren't aware.
I mean, either way, there was a lot of blissful ignorance when it came to safety and security in regards to parenting back then. Like, hey, just be back by 10 or 11 or whatever.
There's another bit in this where fucking Mulvihill is talking to one of his 14-year-old employees. Or no, it wasn't one of the kids. It was an engineer. Non-certified, no-degree engineer, which is how he got most of these things made.
Right.
Is talking to him about one of their attractions, I think called the Colorado River Rapid or something like that. And at one point, the engineer's like, well, you know, you should probably have a lifeguard at a certain point here, especially because that seems to be where most of the accidents happen. And Mulvihill responds by going, well, if you were going to actually rapid down the Colorado River, there's not going to be a lifeguard around. So like,
that's his reasoning. That's his logic to
like it's a fun watch. Obviously, you know, again, once you get towards the end, it starts to, you know, like get a little bit more grounded. But yeah, it's very entertaining and fucking wild. Just some of the shit that fucking happened in this park. This park is, I think I mentioned it basically went defunct in like the late 90s. Yeah. It is still not around. There was an attempt to revive a sort of version of it in the early 2000s by Mulvihill's son, I think.
Of course.
But that did not come to fruition.
The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
It's pretty crazy. Not only just the ride stuff and like people getting injured and all that, but like there's at one point there's might be a connection to the Russian mob, and like basically the officials in the town of Vernon are kind of like turning away from any sort of like iffy things going on in the park because well, it brings in tourists and it's a good moneymaker for the town. And then like there's tax fraud in terms of like security holdings.
Every single adult who lives in that town is complicit in all of the people who were injured and killed.
I will say they do have kind of a contingent of people there who, like, they talk about, like, basically that the town itself is full of people who did not want Action Park there, especially because at one point the tourist boom that it brings also contributes to Hugh Hefner building a version of the Playboy Mansion over there as well.
Wow.
So they like it's fucking wild, man. If you're gonna watch a documentary, this is definitely a good one to watch because it's just kind of crazy out there, and it also has like some underlying social commentaries about the time in which it allowed something like this to be fostered and something like that. So I definitely recommend. Again, it's on HBO Max if you want to give it a watch. But that would be it for me, sir. What did you watch?
So I wasn't as busy as I was last episode when I watched about 10,000 things. I've just been busy doing the daytime work. But I was able to watch 2 pretty recent movies that came out in the last 2 weeks. The first one was The Devil All the Time, which stars Tom Holland. I almost said Hugh Hefner. I'm like, no, that's... Super dead.
Your mind's elsewhere now.
Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson, Bill Skarsgård, and Dudley from the Harry Potter movies, which they didn't advertise as, but he was like he was in a good chunk of the movie, and he plays a pretty important character. And he dumps real spiders on his face, which is insane. And what an actor! He's had a pretty great year, Dudley.
Yeah, he was in the old guard too, so good for him.
But basically, it's a Southern Gothic thriller drama that takes place over like 3 different time periods. One's really, really short, but it takes place during Bill Skarsgård's coming home to America after World War II and dealing with the ramifications of that, how he meets Tom Holland's mother. And then it's kind of just, it's a story of themes basically told over 2 different lifetimes. And about the positive and negative impacts of, being overzealous when it comes to religion. It deals with revenge, it deals with suicide, and it deals with sexual assault and everything. Robert Pattinson plays a reverend who comes in to replace Tom Holland's town's local reverend because he's leaving to visit family. And so he gets recommended by this older reverend. And Robert Pattinson comes in, and he looks like basically kind of a greasy...
Like a rock.
Yeah, like an Elvis Presley.
Snake oil.
Yeah, basically.
Sort of thing.
And I wanted to kind of point out something that was a bit of a controversy when it came to his accent, in that a lot of the actors in this film, aren't normally residents of...
Right. Like Midwestern.
Southern Midwestern United States. And so they all got acting coaches. But Robert Pattinson didn't want an acting coach, and he wanted to come in fresh with it. And they're like, all right, well, you've already got the job, so I guess you're going to do what you're going to do. And he comes in, and he's got a very foghorn, leghorn, boss hog type situation.
Like Daniel Craig in Knives Out.
Yes. In a very much like, the British really don't know how people from the South speak, do they? But
well, it's the same thing whenever we do like a British impersonation, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You go like the extreme version of that, and there's like
chip chip cheerio. What are you talking about? What accent is that? I am so confused. But basically, he comes into the town. I could go on and on about the movie. It's actually a fairly lengthy movie, and it's fairly beefy when it comes to expanding its themes across 2 different generations. But it's very dark and very graphic, so people who may be triggered by certain types of assault, I highly recommend being aware of that. But... across the board, the acting in it is top-notch. Sebastian Stan, Mia Wasikowska, Harry Melling is Dudley. That's who I was thinking of. Bill Skarsgård, Robert Pattinson, Tom Holland. Tom Holland is great. I went into this thinking it was going to be like a lot more action-packed, but it very much is dealing with, living in a...
it's like a drama. Very heavy drama piece.
Right. And it's really good. It may not be for everybody. Like I said, it's very graphic, and so it may be a harder pill to swallow. But I recommend checking it out. And it's on Netflix.
Yeah, it's definitely on my list. Yeah.
It's on Netflix. I did have to pause it, go to sleep, wake up, go to work, and then come home and finish it. So
yeah,
I had to take a breather. And it's actually it's interesting. It's narrated interstitially by the author of the book that it's based on. And I was thinking for the longest time that it was like Jeff Bridges or something, or a Tom Waits. And I'm like, no, that's actually just the author. I looked it up later, and he does a really good job.
Just a side bit. You just made me remember that the narrator for Class Action Park is John Hodgman. So.
Oh, really? I love John Hodgman.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was going to say before.
He's great.
Pivoting back to your Class Action Park recommendation, is that not the premise of Action Point starring Johnny Knoxville? Isn't it like Johnny Knoxville plays a guy who buys like a park that's run down and stuff, and it's like all dangerous and shit?
It might be. It's funny that you mentioned that because the documentary starts with Knoxville on Kimmel, I think.
Okay.
In which they're talking about Action Park. I was like, oh, that's kind of a weird bit to include in, but that might be why he was probably doing press for that movie. Okay.
All right, so it all ties together. I'm not crazy because I'm like, you were describing it. I'm like, that's Action Park, Action Point, inspiration was there.
Well, and it seems like Knoxville went with, like, he was around, I guess, when Action Park was a thing. So that's probably where he got the idea from.
It's like a Jackass theme park, yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Devil All the Time on Netflix. Another movie that I watched was the movie I watched this morning, which was Enola Holmes, or as I like to call it, Anal Hola Holmes. Got him.
Areola Holmes.
Areola. That's the nipple, right? I don't know my anatomy.
Yeah. Around.
Areola. Anyway, let's move on. Starring Millie Bobby Brown, Henry Cavill, Sam Claflin, and other British actors who were in Harry Potter movies. Just go with it.
Sure.
Directed by Harry Bradbeer, who has directed episodes of Fleabag and something else. Hold on. I had it pulled up earlier. What a last name, Harry Bradbeer. He directs mostly like BBC TV movies. This is like his first what would have been film theatrical release, but Netflix bought the rights and is streaming it now. Basically, Millie Bobby Brown plays the younger sister to Mycroft and Sherlock Holmes. But by the time that she grew up to be a teenager, they had already left the house, and she never really got to know them. Their father's dead, so she grew up with her mother, who was played by Helena Bonham Carter.
Mm-hmm.
And when she turns 16, her mother disappears, and so she decides to go out on an adventure to find out where her mother is, and she bumps into a young lord who is important and is in the middle of a murder mystery. So she has a side murder mystery while also trying to find out where her mother is and what she's doing. Great acting. It reminded me a lot of kind of like a family version of the Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes movies.
Okay. Yeah.
In that, like, there's some cool action scenes in there, but at the same time, there's really great writing from like Greta Gerwig type of writing from. Do you remember Little Women? Right. Like where she actually turns to the camera and is talking to the audience and trying to like get that participation back, trying to break the fourth wall, and it's kind of unique and interesting in the aspects, in the ways that she does it throughout the film. Like she is getting drowned by this murderer, and you're like, oh no, Millie Bobby Brown, 11, no, come back, Stranger Things season 4, we need it. And she gets drowned, and so she fakes dying, but then she winks at the camera while she's still underwater, and then like elbows the guy in the head, and it's
that is very okay. Yeah.
So it's kind of fun and playful while also being slightly murdery. Yeah. And it's just kind of a fun ride. You know, it's good for the whole family. You've got Henry Cavill, you got Superman in there being very suave as Sherlock, but they don't use him too much to make it more about a Sherlock film. It's really all about Millie Bobby Brown's Enola Holmes being her own person and being able to take care of herself. She's never once saved by a man. And an underlying message and theme throughout the film is feminism and how women are changing the world and how they want to change the world. And I actually thought that was kind of interesting that they were bringing that into the roots of the film. because one of the main plots of the film is this young lord who's being chased by this guy who's hired by I don't want to spoil it, but a character related to one of the other characters. Fuck, I just straight up spoiled it. But there's a secret plot to kill him because they don't want him to vote for this reform bill in order to have women get the right to vote. And so Enola Holmes gets intertwined in this plot while also kind of like becoming, not romantically, because it's not like oh, I love you, and they make out and stuff, like Atonement style, but she very much becomes attracted to this. Well, I don't know. I just pulled that out of my hat. Just straight up out of my hat.
Sure. I mean, who doesn't have a safety atonement card pool?
Pride and Prejudice. I don't know. I don't read. I really should read more romantic books, maybe, ladies. And it's a good family fun film, on Netflix. It's on right now. So those are the two things I watched. The other things that I've been watching, I started watching AP Bio since I finished It's Always Sunny.
Oh, nice.
Great. I love how all of the It's Always Sunny characters have basically transferred their characters from It's Always Sunny to different to other shows. Yeah. The only one being Charlie Day, who kind of moved on to film and is basically playing Charlie in film rather than a TV show. So you have AP Bio with Dennis or Glenn Howerton. Rob McElhenney is in a new show on Apple Plus called Mythic Quest, where he plays a game developer, but it's basically Mac. And then Dee was in the very short-lived and unfortunately canceled way too soon, The Mick, where she plays Dee. Right. And then Danny DeVito he's doing whatever he wants. He doesn't care. He's literally stuck around It's Always Sunny for so long because he just has fun making that show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I highly recommend it. It's on Peacock, which, hear me out, it's a free service, and you can watch this show for free. So just fucking...
Can you watch the entirety of it, or is it just like the first couple episodes?
I was able to watch all of season 1 for free. I have yet to check and see if season 2 and 3 are free, but I would imagine they are, just because they want as many people to see that show as possible. And other than that, I've just been like trying to finish certain shows here and there that I've already mentioned in the past, but that's it for me. You know, Zach?
Wow, that might be the fastest we've gotten through our watch.
Well, it's okay. It's okay. Just relax. All right. How about this? Let's just dive into the news, because I feel like you have about 1,000 news stories. So let's get in there.
There's a decent amount. I don't know if there's as many. Definitely not as many as last time.
Okay, good.
All right. So first up, we got some unfortunate news, especially for you, because I know you watched the show. But Netflix has officially canceled the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. After one season.
I'm very, very, very upset, as you can tell.
Yeah, I think unfortunately it's just the kind of the same story that happens with a lot of Jim Henson Company or Jim Henson Production. Is that what it is?
It is.
Jim
Henson Company.
Jim. Their productions always seem to kind of run into a bit of a money problem.
They say that. I mean, you say that, but Labyrinth 2 is coming out.
Yes, but how long has it been since the first one? So
that didn't stop them from making Age of Resistance.
How long was it between? Well, that's what I mean. How long was it between Dark Crystal, the movie, and Age of Resistance?
30 years.
It just always seems like it comes down to these are niche products, and unfortunately, because of all the what's the term? Where it's not CG.
Puppetry.
Not that one. Like when you're talking about effects, practical effects. They use a lot of practical effects, and unfortunately that does seem to kind of balloon their budget a little bit, and I think that seems to be the same case here. We have gotten the kind of I don't want to say tired line, but it's been used a lot lately for productions that have been halted or canceled, that they are looking into other avenues to continue the story, but
what they should do
for now, all we know is that it is canceled.
What they should do is go to Disney Plus. It's the perfect transfer of their property. I mean,
You say that, but it was Jim Henson's birthday the other day, and nobody fucking from Disney said, "Hey, happy birthday to Jim Henson." And they have a fucking Muppet show going on right now.
I know. What the fuck? Age of Resistance.
Come on, Disney.
So, as upsetting as that news is, Zach, I highly recommend all of our listeners or viewers to check out The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. Check out the original movie if you'd like. You don't have to necessarily watch it to watch Age of Resistance, because it's a prequel set like 1,000 years in the past, but
right.
It's a fantastic show. There was a lot of heart and fandom built into that show, and I thought it was critically well received. I mean, it had a huge fan base. That's why a lot of people are upset online.
Right.
Granted, it's a 24-hour news cycle, and people are going to forget a week from now, but check it out on Netflix.
Yeah, well, I think something to remember too is, response was great, especially. I'm pretty sure the critical response was good. I know the fan response was good. But, just because you're getting a big response vocally anyway, doesn't necessarily equate to a whole lot of watches. So I would suggest, if this is something that appeals to you, maybe take Nick's advice, go watch it. Maybe they'll pull it. We've seen shows kind of resuscitated
Lucifer
after the point of cancellation. So, yeah, and which is Netflix, even, so maybe just keep trucking and keep open.
Another reason why I suggest it is because every single person grew up watching some version of Jim Henson's Muppets. Whether it be the Muppets films, whether it be the Muppets show, whether it be some of the stuff coming up like Sesame Street. Like a large majority of Americans grew up on Sesame Street. Yes, I know they're not, they're a different part of the Muppets, whatever. But imagine, they are. Imagine getting all of that and taking all of that away from your childhood, what your childhood would have been like. It's pure. It's magical, and it's fun. It's happy. We all kind of need some kind of show like that right now, and I think The Dark Crystal. Yes, dark is in the name of the title, but
well, I was gonna say, I do get where you're coming from, but I'm pretty sure that's a bleak series.
It's not bleak. There's dark moments in it, but it's fucking puppets, dude. It's fun. It has fun moments in it.
And you can also appreciate the magic in practical effects. There's something to be said about that style that it kind of gets lost in translation when you start to utilize more and more, CG and not as much like actual physical thing. And I think I remember in your review of Age of Resistance, you even mentioned that they do utilize CG at times. But it's still mostly practical. So, but anyway, it's a shame. I hope it does find another avenue. But until we hear more, this is what we got. So, moving on. There has been some news within the last day or so of a possible Nick Fury Disney Plus series getting a green light. Now, there hasn't been any confirmation from Disney, but it does seem to be pretty strongly suggested that it is a thing, with Sam Jackson reprising his role as Nick Fury in the series, just to kind of add to the long docket of Marvel Disney Plus shows that we have in line.
I'm personally excited for it. I feel like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was made. Hold on, and I'll pivot towards Nick Fury, but I feel like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was created too early, and with not enough interest in the actual series. Like, it was created before Bob Iger kind of took over, and so there was a lot of like.
Well, Marvel Television was it Marvel Television? It was Marvel TV. This is something I can't remember. But the now defunct arm of that is what it was.
And so they really kind of just had like, yeah, it's an offshoot, it's a whatever, and it was along with Agent Carter and all that, and unfortunately Agent Carter is gone. But this grounded, like, real humans, not necessarily superheroes, their version of events when it comes to all these other superhero type events happening around them and how they deal with it, being a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. And having to interact with other superheroes that we're seeing in the movies or the other TV shows. I feel like it was always created too early. And now that people are kind of into this whole, and of course it's Samuel L. Jackson, he appeals to a lot of people. He's been around, and he's literally an entire focal point of pop culture, just with the amount of quotes that people can pull from his many movies and TV shows. But I think that bringing back, now that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is ending, bringing back this grounded human look at the superhero universe that they've created is well sought after, and we'll have to wait and see what it will be like and if all of this is true.
Well, and I think, it's certainly a perspective that I think generally people are open for. You know, there's usually like, oh yeah, well, you know, we still get like the universe shattering or global threats, you know, in the movies and such, but you know, there's something to be said about the more grounded stuff, the behind the scenes things, which that was how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., all the Netflix Marvel shows were approached originally. I think part of the problem was you had kind of this loose connection to the MCU. It was like kind of there, like every now and then they're like, oh, you remember New York? And then, you know, past that first Avengers movie, they just kind of like dropped any sort of pretense for connection for the most part. But now that you have it all, I think now that you have it kind of all under the same roof, in which they've stated numerous times that the point is for them to be all connected, and thus occupying all TV watching for years and years and years and years to come.
Years and years and years.
You know, that might be a little bit more appealing and for a lot of people. So I think, I'm in the same boat. I'm super down for this. Probably more than some of the other ones in the pipeline, but
I'm not sure if
it might be a minute before we see.
I'm not sure if you have it in the news docket, but during the Emmys, which we reacted to live at twitch.tv/NicksUnderFire, there was a trailer that premiered for WandaVision, and the world, not the world at large, but most people reacted very positively to it because it's kind of one of these, like, what is that show even going to be? It's
so off, you know, out of left field, off base, you know, like so different, you know, I think is what the.
So I think with this being the first full trailer of one of their Marvel superhero Disney Plus TV shows, they're trying to gauge and see where things are at, and especially with whenever it premieres along with The Mandalorian, they're going to see how viewership and subscriptions are lining up and if they want to proceed.
Retention rates.
We'll have to wait and see. You know, if you're excited for it, watch it. If you're not, then don't. Cancel your Disney Plus subscription and punch Mickey Mouse in the face.
That's certainly a way to
It's
go
the only
about
way.
It, yes. I had the WandaVision trailer dropping in here. It looks good to me. I'm stoked for it. Looks weird.
I'm interested to see how they tie it all into other stuff, because I feel like they're not showing us specific things like other characters from some of their other TV shows.
Right. Well, and something to remember too is this is supposed to lead directly into Doctor Strange 2. So they're very likely not. They're holding that close to the chest because they want you to watch it. Obviously.
Again, I'm sure you have this in the news docket, but with the lack of Marvel movies coming out this year and Doctor Strange being one of the last films of Phase 4, right? It's Phase 4 to come out. It comes out like in 2023 now, doesn't it?
Yeah, we can jump to that. So basically what happened was Disney postponed like a ton of their slate. Basically all of it except for I think Soul, and there was a 20th Century movie that is still on its original date. But Black Widow got pushed, which is interesting. For a point too, I'll get to in another news story, but there are some interesting ramifications or kind of like inklings that you can get from that. But that got pushed to 2021, which then cascaded everything down from Shang-Chi, Eternals, like basically everything just got pushed further into the year or into the after years and all
the
that.
After years.
The after years. I'm just going over through this to make sure I didn't. Okay, so with these pushes, there's been speculation that because Soul, the animated Disney movie that has been on the docket for a while, because that has not been pushed, there's some speculation that is going to get dropped on Disney Plus.
Okay.
There's no confirmation. That's just kind of like people are like, oh, well, what if? Which basically that's any conversation with, especially Disney, because they have Disney Plus. It's like, oh, well, there's been no confirmation on what's happening with this. So maybe it'll be dropping on Disney Plus
with that $30.
And I guess kind of what I was getting at, the premium thing. And that's something to keep in mind too. Like, is that going to be, when they did that, they said this won't be the norm, but is it the norm? It's so weird how they're kind of approaching this whole thing. And part of that, the reason of that is the reception to Mulan. So there has been some updates. There's some weird numbers been flying around. I know Yahoo was claiming that like Mulan had pulled in some obscene amount of money, which was not true. They were saying like 250 or something like that, to over 200 million was what it would pull in. And when I saw it, I was like, oh shit, that's kind of crazy. But now it looks like math being like kind of more metered. It looks like what they're looking at is more in between, somewhere between 60 to 90 million.
Not something to scoff at.
Which is not
It's
great.
not great, but...
And now we're kind of getting in. I mean, given that it was, $30 premium access, sure, like that's one way to look at it. But it's worth noting that Trolls World Tour, when it went VOD for $20, off of a non-paid service, it was just VOD in general. Weighed a shit ton more money.
I think it's big.
So, like, leading up to this Mulan release, we had people thinking, like, oh, well, is Mulan going to end up pulling in more than Tenant? Because Tenant was the one that really wanted to go that traditional theater release. And then those numbers came back, and they were kind of wonky. And now we're getting numbers back from Mulan. And, they're not, like, the worst, but they're not, by any stretch, like, super great. All that to say is like now we're gonna have like these weird kind of in between strategies. I think where it's like, okay, well, if we're gonna do VOD, let's just do straight up VOD. Like the Premier Access thing was a nice test, right? But would we get more subs by just dropping Soul onto the service as opposed to being like, well, on top of your sub, you got to pay for access.
It's a big risk and a big, not necessarily a big reward either if they make their money back or not, because they're looking at the movie theater with Tenant and they're looking at just dropping it on Disney Plus and having the regular subscription price be enough for a ticket for an entire household. And then they see the negative reactions to the $30 on top of the Disney Plus subscription, and they hope that that's enough for the American people, and a lot of people can't afford to watch it. And we've had this conversation a couple of times already, but I mean...
And something to note, too, is that Mulan will be available for all subscribers in December, I think. So then you have people who may very well watch it, who are just like, I have plenty to watch from now to when that goes to full access without me having to pay that premiere or whatever. So I'm just going to do that. Yeah. And I don't know if it necessarily was the right move to kind of kneecap yourself like that. It was nice because then I could make the decisions like, well, if I want to watch it, I'll just wait till December. You know, I'm not going to do. I'm not going to do that thing you're asking me to do when you're telling me that in 2 months it's going to be on the service I already pay for. So I don't know. I like that they didn't lie to me or obfuscate. Oh God, don't use a word that you can't
obfuscate.
Say. Not saying the truth. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird.
It just
time.
cuts. It boils down to me as being greedy. Just that's it. There's no way of talking me out of them trying to decide whether they should do it by dropping it in the subscription service that they were already trying to entice people to pay for, while also paying a premium. So,
and then like something on the back of all this too is like, well, yeah, again, Tenant has not been doing great. I think it's still at sub 40 domestic. It's playing in empty theaters. So even by that metric, well, then maybe Disney did make the right call. If it's making double that, 90 million is still a hell of a lot better than 40.
It's still a hit to them, though.
But then and it still brings into question, well, if you hadn't done that premiere access through Disney Plus, even if you had just done like the Trolls World Tour thing, it was completely separate from Disney Plus, you're still paying $20 or 30 or whatever on any service, right? Would you see more of an investment from audiences staying at home now that you're including those people who don't have Disney Plus, who aren't paying for the subscription service? Like, is that going to factor into your next move?
It's expanding the audience, though, isn't it?
And then that brings you to the Black Widow decision, where much like Wonder Woman for Warner, where they're waiting to see how Tenet performs to make any sort of decision on Wonder Woman. They were also Disney was doing the same thing with Black Widow, and so now I think despite them saying like, oh hey, 90's good, it's literally the exact same thing that happened with Wonder Woman. What we did is good. We're still gonna push it back. So I don't know. I've said this basically the same thing so many times at this point. It's kind of weird trying to mix the PR speak, both two types of PR speak, where it's like we're doing great and we're doing not so great.
It's like having enough common sense to not stick your foot into a pool of lava, but also realizing that there may be another way around it. Like, but are you going to be the first person to walk around, or are you going to be the first person to dive in?
Well, we saw who the first person.
It was Warner Brothers.
It was Tenant,
but it was Warner Brothers, which is ironic because while they committed to their director's vision of, hey, I want it in theaters for it to be seen, nobody's seeing it, and so it's like they're like, okay, well then we have this thing that's not part of a franchise, whereas Wonder Woman will pull in a hell of a lot more people than a Christopher Nolan film will.
You might convince more people to come out for that because it's part of an established property, an established genre that is obviously going to get more interest than, a Nolan Mindbender or whatever. and even Nolan Mindbender is supposed to have quite a bit of interest, but objectively, you would get some sort of bump just by virtue of being a superhero movie.
I suppose I can't speak for the entire audience of every single future Wonder Woman screening, but I'm still not risking going out into a movie theater to see this. Like, no.
Yeah.
So, who knows?
So I'm doing like a bunch of jumping around here because a lot of these stories are kind of interconnected. So on the back of Tenant, we also have gotten reports that Warner is apparently just not telling anyone what their actual box office numbers are, and they're hiding their numbers from rival studios, which it's generally like they'll have insider people who kind of provide those numbers to one another, so like the industry as a whole can kind of gauge interest and like how's releasing on this day do, and now we're kind of seeing this weird thing with Warner where they bet on this horse and they want to keep PR looking good, so instead what they're going to do is not provide that, which is causing it might be causing a lot of the issues that we're having with all of these not just Disney pushes, but like a bunch of other studios are pushing releases as well because there's not enough info and not enough data. And I think it seems to be that a large portion of that is coming from Warner and being like, yeah, we're not going to provide you with that anymore.
So,
which is not great.
I want to equate this into a simpler image. So, Zach, do me a favor. Close your eyes. Audience, close your eyes. I want you to picture this. You're in a movie theater or a stage theater, theater production kind of thing, where you watch plays. On the stage is Warner Brothers. It's two brothers named Warner. And behind them, they have a horse named Tenant. And it's looking great. It's a stallion. And everyone in the audience, including you, are movie executives from other movie studios and online streaming services. You got Netflix, you got Hulu. They're all in the audience. You're in good company. Now, Warner Brothers closes the curtain that is covering up Tenant the horse. And they walk behind the curtain. So you don't see anything. It's just a curtain. All of a sudden, you hear a gunshot and a large thump on the stage. The two brothers, both named Warner, come out, and one of them is carrying a smoking rifle. They then chuck the rifle behind the curtain and look at the audience and just stand there and stare at them. Some of the people around you, Amazon, Hulu, again, Netflix, Disney Plus, they're all looking around like, hey, what happened? And the two brothers simply tell everyone to calm down, relax. They've got it. They've got it taken care of. Don't worry about it. All right? Soon, you can have your own horse on your own stage. And I don't have an ending to this parable, but that's...
Can I have my ass out? Okay. That was quite the picture you painted for me. Did I pay to see the horse? Is that why I'm there?
Yes. Sorry, I should have stated yes. Everyone has paid to go see that horse.
I thought we were just in the theater and they're like, "Here's a horse," and then they kill the horse.
Hey, nobody said the horse is dead. Nobody. It's a Schrodinger's horse. All right, it's the Warner's horse, and nobody knows if it's dead or if it's alive and doing wonderful tricks behind that curtain. But we all know that it's being left to die. So, and you paid for it, or didn't?
Yeah. So actually, I'm reading a little bit of this again, and I do want to also add that Warner is not the only one that's doing this. Sony is as well. So two big players. I think Warner holds like 80% market share or something like that. It's a little ridiculous. But that big portion, along with Sony, which is nothing to scoff at either, both are in a sort of blackout sort of period with their data. And we know what happened to the horse, but they're not telling us exactly how many. It's like, okay, use your horse analogy, right? It's like some bullets were used on something. We're not going to tell you how many of those bullets.
That's
were
why
used.
I had the part of the analogy where you see the gun and it's smoking, and then they chuck it behind the curtain. Like we see the results of what they did, but like we aren't seeing it. Like it's not being straight up told to us. Like, hey, this is the number of tickets sold and the profits from this film. But just trust us. It's great. It's a great horse. It's a great film.
But also the horse's sister, or cousin rather, we are not going to be letting them have their show anytime soon. Their show has been pushed to postponed. Next year, in which we may or may not also have to use a gun again, for no other reason.
Turn it into glue. Oh.
But anyway, so I think that is the last stretch of connected tissue, as it were, in that long line of news. I guess you mentioned Mandalorian a little earlier. That trailer dropped for that. Looks good.
That is coming out beginning of October or end of October? I want to say October 30th.
End of October. October 30th.
Got it right.
Is the release date. So.
Cool.
Looking forward to that. Moving on. A new casting for Ant-Man 3 has occurred. Jonathan Majors from Lovecraft Country and Defy Bloods, probably the most prominent things that people would know him from, has been cast in an unnamed role. For whatever reason, people are thinking that it's Kang the Conqueror, and I can't really... I guess the report says that he's supposed to play a major villain.
Because of his last name.
But there's nothing to...
Because of his last name.
Yeah. You got it. Yeah.
I love this pity. Yeah. All right. Good job, kid. Good job. It's
so all that we know is he's been cast as a major villain, but nothing to really, it seems like, to kind of glean why that should be Kang. I don't know if that's based off of like earlier reports on supposed plot.
It might just be a rumor that someone started.
I guess what people are thinking. But, yeah, I mean, regardless, it's good casting. I like seeing him in more stuff. So
wait,
I'm good for that. Oh God, no!
I'm not sure if it's in the news docket, but I've been hearing reports that people who are going to the movies are seeing the trailer for Morbius still being played. So, yeah,
really,
would you be able to look up the release date for Morbius?
I think that is next year.
I assume it is, but people are still saying. And granted, not every movie theater chain is going to play the right trailer in front of the right movie. But as far as I know, yeah, with us talking about Sony earlier and the fact that there's no other Marvel superhero movies, and yes, granted, it's along the lines of Venom in the Spider-Man films being a Sony property while being, licensed by Marvel. Jared Leto, vampire guy, looks terrible. What'd they say?
Current slated release is March 19th of 2021.
So never mind. Non-story.
I mean, to be fair, what else are they gonna fucking play?
Honestly, what Marvel should be doing is using lesser known properties to test the waters. Like if they're not getting the numbers from Warner Brothers, yeah, I'm bringing it back. If they're not being able to watch that dead horse, then they should be able to put up their own horse on a stage across the street and shoot it themselves and see what it looks like. Hold on.
It's certainly a way to...
Well, I'm just saying, like, they can use a lesser-known horse. They can use a smaller horse.
That they don't care.
A lame horse. This is terrible. We're losing listeners.
Who did you know?
They can send it out to die and test the waters that way. You know what I mean? You still have a high-profile name with Jared Leto.
They can do that, yeah.
That's what I would do.
I'm going to move on.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Please do.
There's more Marvel casting news. Tatiana
Maslany.
Yep.
Orphan Black
has been cast Yes, from Orphan Black has been cast as Jennifer Walters. Is that right? It's She-Hulk. Jennifer Walters. She has been cast.
I'm so excited for this.
In the upcoming Disney Plus She-Hulk.
So this was originally...
which is great casting.
This was originally going to be one of the Hulu shows that they then morphed into Disney Plus after their plans.
Was it actually?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, it was this...
I'm pretty sure it was always Disney
it was
Plus.
Either Disney Plus always, or it was Hulu along with the MODOK and the other, like, why are they making this shows?
Right, that are all canceled except for Hellstrom for some reason.
I don't know. But She-Hulk was long rumored to, you know who we should get? We should get Alison Brie because she looks like Alison Brie. But honestly, Tatiana Maslany is such a better actor, and I feel like she can take a both serious and comedic twist to this role. And if you haven't watch Orphan Black, it's a great show. I simp hard for Tatiana Maslany.
Let it be known.
Oh God, I look so sweaty in this. Hold on, I'm switching my lighting.
It's okay, we all do.
I have to turn off the AC for recording. For those, I don't know if we've said this on the podcast. We have to turn off the AC because my AC is super, super loud. And, And so it gets really, really hot. We live in Texas, so it's really fucking hot. Why am I wearing 2 shirts? Shut up. How about that? Yeah.
Okay.
Moving on.
The Batman production has resumed after Robert Pattinson's quarantining. So back for like the 6th time back on track. We'll see if there's any more derailments in the coming weeks.
Damn it. Just, be safe out there.
The production, the most cursed production in all.
Don't say that. That makes.
I mean, is it
a reality? I don't know.
Definitely the most issues.
I just hope for the best. I just want this movie now.
Yes. Well, you want them to be
also
safe
that.
as well,
yes, wear a mask. Robert.
Harley Quinn has officially, after much consideration and concern among the fans, the DC Universe original / now HBO Max original Harley Quinn is getting a season. So
even the creators on Twitter were saying we don't know, we haven't been renewed, so like, are we canceled? And the fans were like, "Oh no!"
They were basically in the dark.
I love that
until this.
I love that they have to hear the news about whether they have a job or not through like news articles and not like through a phone call from their superiors.
It sounds like a Warner problem because it's the same thing that the Infinity Train creator is dealing with right now. So they've been seeing Infinity Train views like increasing. It's becoming more present in like their featured section, which is good. This is partially based on
You're
views.
welcome.
But yeah, they basically they have no contact.
Sucks.
With them until like they've made an internal decision. There seems to be no communication from inside Warner to anyone that they're dealing with in terms of production, which is fucking bonkers.
I don't understand. Like, it's not just movie studios, but it's like I hear this from like YouTube personalities, Twitch streamers, people who work on various TV shows. They don't hear anything until they're like being interviewed about the news that broke that morning, and they're like, "Wait, what? I've been cast to play Man-Cheetah in the Man-Cheetah film," and you're like, yeah, apparently you have. You auditioned for it last month, and I'm like, it's been quarantine. What are you talking about? I'm Man-Cheetah? Anyway, I hate that.
You're right.
I hate
it. Yes, I agree. Nick, do you use Quibi? Be honest. Do you use Quibi?
I know what a Quibi is. I'll be ready in half a Quibi. All right. hey, how you doing, hot stuff? I'm doing great. I've got a hot Quibi for you. That kind of thing. No, am I right? No? Anyway, I used it for about the first 2 weeks or so that it came out. And I'm like, okay, I could see what this is. Because basically, I could see what this is.
I understand
that this is video playing on my phone. Yeah, you can basically watch anything in vertical or horizontal, but like everything is filmed to be like watched in vertical. And well, it was kind of a fun idea. Everything was like less than 8 minutes, and so
right, they're short. It's short form episodes.
It's too many gimmicks. It was too many gimmicks for me, and while there was some fun content on there, I couldn't. It was a whole other thing.
Well, you don't seem to be alone because just after a little over half a year, I think, after its unveiling, the streaming service seems to be looking at possibly selling. I said selling out, but it's just selling. They're exploring options to either be acquired or going public via a merger, raising additional funds. There was no comment from a Quibi spokesperson about it, but it does not look good.
I would like to see some of their original programming on different platforms, because the biggest thing, and they're probably going to, in a statement, blame the pandemic on all of their financial troubles, but they invested $1 billion into this company, and it was something that you couldn't stream onto your TV. You could only watch it on your phone. And not everybody is looking at their phone 24/7, especially when they're too busy working from home, watching things on their TV or their computer, where it's much more accessible. Not everybody's always staring at their phone when they're pooping for 30 minutes, all right? I know I'm in the minority.
Of course, yes. Well, I think it's also probably... You should probably note that if they're looking at being acquired or merging with anyone, they're probably not going to have their PR person go out and be like, "Yeah, we're fucked.
This fucking sucks, guys. We're getting bought out. We're losing our. I'm losing my job, and a whole Quibi. It's because of that conversation I had with that lady. Anyway, that was it. I don't want to.
Yeah, it's a developing thing. It seems like, but yeah, right now, unless some good things turn around for them, Quibi seems to be in a bit of trouble. But moving on, apparently, John Cena's Peacemaker in the upcoming The Suicide Squad is getting an HBO Max spinoff directed by James Gunn, which is interesting. I feel like that's the more interesting news on this, aside from it just being like, oh, there's a spinoff. James Gunn will be directing it, which is an interesting.
Oh, I thought it was only writing. It is directing the whole series.
Yeah,
or maybe just the first one. And
let's see.
It's a big time commitment.
So it says Gunn is writing the series as a whole, and directing several.
See, that makes more sense, because you can write 8 episodes in the span of a few months or a year, and then direct a few episodes, and that takes a few weeks. But then you got to move on to your next property, which, as we all know, is Guardians of the Galaxy 3, whenever that may be. Yeah. I know that's his next project after.
We're never.
We're not getting a lot of these movies because they're all coming out next year, which is an eternity from now. So, don't remind me. It's exciting. When I read the headline, I'm like, oh, here comes the people who are like, oh, you spoiled it. He actually survives the Suicide Squad. I love how we're gonna put emphasis on the Suicide Squad. And he's like, we're not revealing any timeline plans or anything. And then in the synopsis, it's like the origins of the Peacemaker and how he became the person he is. I'm like, we don't know who he is now. Interesting. Oh, okay.
Well, and so that's an interesting thing to bring up about this, because I've seen a lot of concern about the Suicide Squad, and specifically the amount of people they have on board for it, or the amount of heroes or anti-heroes that are going to be in the movie. And the concern is, are you really going to have enough time for character development for 20
Not
of
if they
these
die,
people?
Zach.
And most assuredly, probably not.
Well, I mean, any of the characters that are not going to have any character development, Zach, I guarantee you, especially with James Gunn, they're going to die. Because in the original Suicide Squad, they had... How many of the Suicide Squad members die? One. They had the fucking...
are you
the
talking
movie,
about
Suicide
the movie?
Squad. Not the Suicide Squad.
Okay. I thought you were talking about the series.
Not the comic series. A lot of them die in the comic series, but that's the whole point. Not the animated film either, Hell to Pay, but the 2016 David Ayer's Suicide Squad movie, they had one member die. And everyone else was a pivotal member, and so they had character moments and character... It's a shit movie. Don't see it. It's shit. It's garbage. Don't watch it. Also, it's being retconned with this movie, while also being a sequel. I can tell you with James Gunn's trademarks and the way that he tells stories, there are going to be characters who die. There will probably be a character with a great character moment, and you'll get backstory, and then that character will die like that. It's going to happen with this many actors, and with this many actors, they're going to die. Especially, I almost said Josh Brolin. It's not Josh Brolin. Firefly. The main castle.
I thought you were talking about like a hero name or anti-hero named Firefly.
Nathan Fillion. Nathan Fillion is definitely going to die.
Yes, Nathan Fillion is for sure dead. Yeah, for sure.
So, moving on.
The Boys is set to get a spin-off series set in a superhero college. Is apparently being developed at the moment by Amazon.
Rated R X-Men.
If you like The Boys, you're getting more of The Boys.
I don't know if
you know what, you know every time I... Sorry.
I was going to say, no, I already lost my train of thought. Fucking fuck.
You're going to be really annoyed when I tell you why we ran over each other, and that you've now forgotten your point as a result. I was going to say, whenever I hear the name The Boys, all I can think of is Let's Hear It for the Boys.
I don't get that.
The song.
I don't.
You don't know Let's Hear It for the Boys? Go listen to Let's Hear It for the Boys. Great song.
Whoa. Wow, okay. Relax. Honestly, they may have played that song in the series, but maybe I just missed it. I don't know. I just finished episode 6 of season 2.
I might be a little weird if they played
Let's
that song.
Let's hear it for the boys.
Yeah, it's been weird.
Is that the song?
Weird.
Dun, dun.
Yeah. Well, it's for the boy. Yeah, it's that song.
For the boys.
You got it. See, you know.
It was way in the back. I had to go to the second closet behind the other closet. Nice.
Of course, yeah. The Cassian Andor series that's been in development for Disney Plus, which feels like forever, has officially tapped a director, Toby Haynes, best known from.
I was just going to ask. Yeah,
will be directing.
Cool. I think we've discussed this in the past before, but
yeah.
Why? Because he's a Han Solo-esque character in one movie?
Because if it's Disney Star Wars, they will get every ounce of blood that they can.
I would much rather watch a romantic drama involving Jawas.
Fuck, yeah, I'd watch that too.
All the Jawas I loved before. Now coming to Disney Plus.
Oh boy. P.S. P.S. I jolly love you.
No, in that movie, Gerard Butler dies, man. Come on. Spoilers for P.S. I Love You.
Yeah. Well, that's literally the point of the movie.
I know.
He's dead.
But some people may not know that. They see the poster for P.S. I Love You, and they're like, oh, Gerard Butler's in this? He's my favorite guy from 300, I guess. He dies in Reign of Fire at the end.
Or Gamer.
I was in Geostorm. I'm Gerard Butler. We hate Gerard Butler here at Lights Camera Nonsense.
He's great in How to Train Your Dragon 1 and 2,
but not 3. You spoiled it.
Wow.
He dies a lot, actually.
I was totally fine.
Actually, no. Now that I'm thinking about it, Gerard Butler dies in a lot of his movies, and just about every single one that I can think of.
The man knows how to provide character development.
Honestly, I'm kind of wanting to like equate it to Sean Bean and see like who has died in more of their films.
That would be an interesting.
Somebody do the research,
Bean, right? It's
and email us.
Literally everything the man is in.
Email us
dead.
at the yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, because I'm thinking law-abiding citizen, same thing. Fuck, holy shit.
True, yeah, that's true. Was he in one of the Olympus?
Oh, okay.
Whatever White House.
Yeah. So he's in all 3 of those, but I haven't watched the 3rd one, so maybe he dies at the end of the 3rd one. There's 3 of those. Olympus has fallen, Angel has fallen, and London has fallen. Fuck, dude.
Well, there's always something else that can fall.
I fall all the time. I'm ready for fall. You know what I mean? Autumn. Looking at you. Get those leaves.
Yes. I am also
it's
ready
too hot.
for fall.
What's the next news story?
Next news story. Apparently, I don't know if a whole lot of you fine listeners are familiar with this property, but for those who are, Yakuza, the video game series from SEGA, is apparently in the process of developing a live-action movie.
So, can I blow your mind, Zach? There was already a Yakuza movie based on the games.
Please blow my mind.
I just did. Did you not hear me? Yeah.
Was it really?
Came out in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Oh.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
It's been memed to hell.
Let's see.
I'll cut out this bit. It's all right.
Let's see. Yakuza movie.
Let's hear it for the boys. Bum, bum. Let's hear it for the boys. Dun, dun.
Is it just called Yakuza?
Dun, dun. Let's hear it for the boys. That's the only part of the song I remember. I'm so sorry. No, I'm not. I'm not sorry. Fuck you. Listener, I love you.
I'm not.
I saw clips of it on YouTube. It was like early 2000s.
I mean, there's the infamous English dub of the first Yakuza game with Mark Hamill. Yakuza.
It was called Like a Dragon. It came out in 2007.
Like a Dragon.
Former Yakuza gang member Kazuma has just finished serving a long prison stretch and is getting reacquainted with the outside world in Tokyo's Kabukicho district. He meets Haruka, a young girl searching for her mother, who was Kazuma's childhood sweetheart. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know who he was. You know what?
To be fair, though, you were saying
no.
Early 90s.
I never said early 90s. I said early
90s.
2000s. I would never say early 90s. I will play the playback. Also, it was directed by Takashi Miike. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
He loves video games and anime, and he will direct every single adaptation of everything to movie. Like, he is a more successful and better version of U-Bowl.
That is actually a very good way to put it. Yeah. Well, the more you know. Well, apparently there's another live action Yakuza movie in development.
I'm gonna cut out all that previous bit, so it's gonna be be stitched really weird.
It's gonna be super small. Yeah.
So look forward to that. It's a really popular game series, both in Japan and in America. Cool.
Yes.
Cool.
Now, anyway.
If you really are clamoring for a great Yakuza movie, watch The Outsider starring Jared Leto. It's on Netflix. It's interesting.
Oh.
That's it. It's interesting. Yeah.
Okay, it's interesting. It's not the worst.
I mean, it's like if you take The Last Samurai starring Tom Cruise, watch that. But why?
No.
It's fine.
just to be contrarian.
It's fine. But if you make, instead of samurai, it's Yakuza members, and instead of Tom Cruise, it's Jared Leto. I know. I'm sorry. It's a horrible substitute, but same whatever. Same whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Say whatever.
What's the next news story?
Continue on. Netflix has officially released a new trailer for Haunting of Bly Manor, otherwise known as Haunting of Hill House Season 2. But yeah, looks great. I'm super excited. It's, only a couple weeks left.
I actually haven't watched it. So. I've seen like screenshots, like one. Yeah, I haven't watched the trailer because I actually want to go in blind. Okay. I'm really excited for it. So it's also directed by Mike Flanagan, who directed the first season, and has also directed several Stephen King adaptations, more recently being, 1912, Dr. Sleep. Dr. Sleep yes. Too, he's the new Frank Darabont. A better Frank Darabont, I should say.
Very excited. Trailer looks great.
That's it.
Yeah, can't say much.
If you're looking for a good horror show to watch during October, because it's going to be all spookies.
Well, and I revisited Hill House not too long ago, and that's still a great series. Very slow burn. I'm pretty sure we talked about it on the podcast, or maybe the early incarnation in Nicknames movies, but still. Great show. Definitely give it a watch if you haven't. And in preparation for Bly Manor, which is totally separate. Should be good. And then I don't know how much you want to talk about this. You mentioned it a little earlier in the episode, but the Emmys.
Yes, we did.
Happened.
Yes, we did talk about it. So just a brief summary. I actually uploaded the whole video to YouTube, but had to take it down due to several copyright claims. I didn't want to edit it. But you can actually watch a lot of our reactions to movie awards seasons and movie announcements on twitch.tv/NicksUnderFire, my Twitch channel, not Zach's. Get out of here.
No.
I do need to feature you on one of those eventually, but the Emmys happened. The Emmys happy. Well, okay, so the big winners of the night were Succession and Schitt's Creek. Schitt's Creek basically taking the entire comedy award pool and winning every single award. Both Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actors, Best Supporting Actress, Best Comedy, and Best Writing of a Comedy Series. Basically sweeping and winning, I believe, 8 awards total for the night. And then Succession winning Best Drama, Best Directing for a Drama Series. And there were several shows and miniseries in the middle that have won awards, but when it came to the individual award titles, I could not give them to you. But you'll just have to watch that.
And I could, but it would take forever, and you're probably the better served just going
to
the VOD.
So you can check that out there.
Was there anything that stood out to you as like kind of a
so I never watched Euphoria, mainly because I didn't have... When it came and went, I was watching other things, but I heard good things. And Zendaya actually won... Best Actress in a I think it was miniseries, but she won an Emmy and is the youngest Emmy Award winner now. which is amazing. And she gave a great speech. A lot of people gave great speeches and used that platform to support several causes. I felt like it wasn't this Emmy Award presentation, while very slapdash, and there were several audio issues and video issues. The night started off with Jennifer Aniston putting out a literal trash fire with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, not only putting it out,
lighting it, putting it out, and then not being able to put it out, and then running off, and then doing a Friends reunion bit later. It was good. It was fun. I thought that I almost said Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Kimmel, much better, did a great job. He didn't detract from anybody's speeches. He didn't cut anybody off because they couldn't really play anybody off. They were speaking from home, most people. And the only thing that really kind of brought it down for me was the interstitial announcer / DJ for the night, DJ D Nice. There were a couple of slip ups from him when it came to reading off of the teleprompter, I assume, and there were some audio issues on his end, but. It was a fun night. It was very interesting. I would personally like to see something more like this every year because it's more engaging.
Right.
And it's not as cringy, you know?
Yeah. Even though
it could be cringy. It honestly, if we went back to if the world became normal again come January 1st, which who knows? No, it won't. And we had a normal Emmy Award show next year. I personally would like to either go back to no host or go back to something like this where it's pre-recorded or it's live at a remote location and they only have a few actors here and there. There were, like I said before, there were a lot of great messages being told, and people use their platforms to support causes that are happening right now. And there were a lot of causes. I believe every studio that won an award donated a significant amount of money to causes. So if they won, they were basically obligated to donate this money to different charity cases. And good. That's awesome. I would have loved to seen, humongous checks being passed to certain people, but it's okay.
But with small dollar amounts. There's nothing funnier than a gigantic check for like $5.
Yeah. That's the world we live in, but unfortunately, due to it being a pandemic, we can't afford large checks either. Those are germ factories. Is that all we have for the night?
You said it.
All right.
That's it for the news. Yeah.
Thank you, Zach, for
record pace.
We actually made it. We made it. We're actually hitting the limit that we're supposed to be. So we did it, Zach. You thought we couldn't, but we did it.
Yes.
If you ever doubt me being able to pad time ever again, Zach. But this has been Lights, Camera, Nonsense.
I don't know how to take that.
Just leave it as an empty pause. I want the listeners to wonder if their audio cut out or if he's secretly beating them to a pulp on the other side of the screen. But this has been Lights, Camera, Nonsense.
That's pretty impressive.
Fucking Zach. This has been Lights, Camera, Nonsense, keeping you updated despite our best efforts. Make sure to tune in every 2 weeks for all the latest news, reviews, and Zach.
How do you do? And also email us.
Shout into the microphone. Yes, also, Zach, I'm sorry, I did skip that. Thank you for tuning in, but if you happen to have something you want to say to us, if you think that our reviews for a specific movie or film or TV show are way out of whack, like we don't know what we're talking about, Zach, how would they be able to email us?
So you can email us, and our email has gone through a little bit of an update between the last episode and now. So now, to kind of make it just a little easier, if you email us at anything at lightscameranonsense@gmail.com, then we will get it. So if you want to do Zach at lightscameranonsense I fucked that up. If you want to do Zach at lightscameranonsense.com, I will get it. If you want to do butts at lightscameranonsense at gmail. Fuck. It's so hard to get rid of the Gmail.
It's okay.
anything at lightscameranonsense.com we will get, and we will also read it on the show.
So
and then you can also use the previous Gmail address as well, and we can still get it.
So if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, email us at butts@lightscameranonsense.com.
Or learn to read at lightscameranonsense.com.
Or Zach sucks at lightscameranonsense.com. Or we love Nick and only Nick at lightscameranonsense.com. But, I mean, since we cut into my outro, I guess we'll just say thank you, and we will see you next time.
How do you do?
How do you do? You already did that. All right. Bye.
Bye.